Hello, and welcome to another video. My name is Laura, and today I will be wrapping up and talking about the books that I read in May. If you're coming from my last video, you will have seen that I rounded up my reading to 10 books and that is a new personal goal for me. I feel like I read at most 5 books, and that's honestly only because of school readings. If anything, I maybe only get to 2 or 3 if I am reading for funsies for myself. But this month I decided to push myself and try to read as many books as I can. After finals and grading was submitted and everything like that, I had the time to essentially read up to 7 books. But on the last 2 days of the month, I challenged myself to round that number to a beautiful 10, just because it was nice and even. And 10 is the symbol of completion, of cycles ending and everything like that. So that is why I wanted to push myself to read 10 books, and she did it. I will admit, especially if you are familiar with any of my vlogs, but I did cheat a little bit. One of the books I technically read, I started in April, but I finished it in May. So I don't think that's cheating. I really don't think that's cheating, but I will be completely honest, and that is what happened. Started in April, ended in May. Let's see how we want to do this. Okay, so the first books that I want to talk about will be the books that I have a whole dedicated reading vlog to, so I won't go into too much detail about that here on this video. And that is these 3 books here. I also do want to preface this by saying that I don't necessarily rate my books, only because I feel like everybody's taste is different. If I liked it, you may not have liked it, and the other way around. So just go by what I say in this video if you are interested or not. So anyways, the first book that I want to talk about is The Employees by Olga Ravin. And this is a story laid out by statements or memos of the employees of a spaceship. This is a sci-fi, and these employees are on a spaceship, and the story takes place after they have discovered a new planet and they have carried on objects onto the spaceship. And the statements are made by the employees who are both human or humanoids, and you don't really know who's who until you pick up on like the clues, or if they explicitly say I'm a humanoid, I am a human, and so on and so forth. And while there is a plot to the story, it really just mostly focus on like the philosophical questions of like what it means to be human and everything like that. And this was a very enjoyable read. I am personally not a sci-fi girly, but when it gets philosophical like this is when I am very much enjoy it. And one of the main reasons why I chose it for my reading channel was because of how empty it essentially is. So this was a really fast read. It was 125 pages, but it was also kind of less. It was a fast read is what I'm trying to say. Even though it is this short, it is still very impactful, and I very much enjoyed my time here. So if you want to know more of my thoughts and everything like that, again, it is in the video that should have gone on up before this one. Another book that I read in that video is Pedro Páramo by Juan Rulfo. The first time that I read this book was in 2023, I think, when I was working on my master's thesis, and I personally didn't really like it. But I knew that it had so much potential, especially since I worked on it extensively within my thesis. So I was very excited when a new translation came out, and this is it. So this was a reread and a new read in a sense. And again, more detail in the video, but I will say that I very much enjoyed this new translation, and I very much enjoyed this book. I really like it, and I'm glad that I gave it a second chance. So if you felt like you didn't really like Pedro Páramo, I highly recommend this new translation. I highly recommend giving it a second chance with this new translation because I feel like it's less clunky. I think that was one of my bigger issues, where it's already a weird book. So if it's really hard to follow, I think this new translation smoothed it out a bit, if that makes sense. The last book mentioned in that video is Heart of the Dog by Mikhail Bulgakov. And this is a satire, political commentary on the Soviet Union in the 1920s. And I very much really enjoyed this book. The synopsis is about a professor who does a science experiment on a dog who eventually turns him into a human, transforms him into a human, and that human dog eventually works for the government to purge the city of cats. That is what the summary says. There is so much more that goes into that, and I really recommend it. If you have been wanting to read The Master and Margarita or are intimidated to read The Master and Margarita, then I actually kind of recommend reading The Heart of a Dog first, just so you could get a taste of that writing style and that chaos and satire, because this is a little more straightforward, while The Master and Margarita is way more chaotic, honestly, is the best way that I could put it. It was a wild time, but I very much enjoyed myself. Same thing with this one. It was a wild time, but I very much enjoyed myself. I think in the video I did reference giving it a rating, so I'll say it here as well. If I had to rate my books, gun to my head, I have to rate this, I would give this a 4 out of 5. These are the books. They have a dedicated video to them, which I will link somewhere in this video. Another book that I reference in another video, you see me reading it and even crying in it, is technically 2 books in one. My edition has the duology together, but they were published as separate books. And that is the Monk and the Robot duology by Becky Chambers. The first book is a Psalm for the Wild-Built, and the second book is a Prayer for the Crown-Shy. Oh, the back of the book has the, if you could see that, if it will focus, there you go. So again, I'm not a sci-fi girly, but when it comes to philosophical themes and conversations, really any genre I could take. So that is what these books really talk about. So it says in the back of this edition, Becky Chambers' series asks, in a world where people have what they want, does having more matter? This book goes on with more philosophical questioning and other kinds of themes, and it is told in a very beautiful story on friendship as well. And this book is very much considered a cozy sci-fi as well. I feel like these books are very famous right now, or very popular right now in the book sphere. So I'm glad that I finally jumped on that bandwagon, because it was very much worth it. This book made me cry, and it has officially gained a spot in my favorites shelf. So if you've been considering picking up this duology, I highly recommend it. I really liked this book. It was a fun time. The next book that I read was a buddy read, and it is also a little on the short side, so this helped push my number into the double digits, but that is Paradise Rot by Jenny Haval. I've been very curious about this book for the longest time. I'm not gonna say much about this book because really talking about this book will spoil it. However, I will say a lot of people refer to this book as like having a piss kink. We don't kink shame here. I really thought it would be worse in terms of like all of the urine involved. While there was a lot, very much not needed, I really thought it would be worse. I really thought the urine would be worse. Still mentioned too much in my opinion, but I thought it would be worse. I tried reading her second novel, Girls Against God, and I have mentioned multiple times in older vlogs that has just been a constant DNF, because there's just like a wall that I can't get through for some reason. However, after reading Paradise Rot, I kind of want to try reading that one again, just to see if it was just something missing within her writing style, or if that book really is just not good. So we'll see when I will get to that eventually, but not my favorite, but not the worst either. I enjoyed my read is what I'm trying to say, but I don't think I will be rereading this anytime soon. Speaking of enjoying my time here, the next book is actually a fairly new release. I think it came out earlier this year, and that is The Hounding. And oh my god. I very much enjoyed this read. It was weird and I liked it. This book really reminded me of Nathaniel Hawthorne's work, but in a very contemporary sense. This is apparently the author's debut novel, and I definitely want to pick up more of her works because of how good this one was. The blurb here says, the Crucible meets the Virgin Suicides in this haunting debut about 5 sisters in a small village in 18th century England whose neighbors are convinced they're turning into dogs. So I guess not necessarily American, but still very much reminiscent of like Hawthorne in a way, Poe maybe. I don't know, those were the vibes that I got. And this was a really good reading month. And this was one of the earlier books that I read, and this definitely set the tone, in my opinion. The next book that I have here in my stack, again, not in reading order, but just what I have here on my stack, is the book where I cheated a little bit. And I started in April, but I finished in May, and that is Piranesi by Susanna Clark. And I had different expectations on this book, so while I was reading it, I didn't know how I really felt when I finished it. However, after I sat through my thoughts and everything like that, I realized that I genuinely actually really liked this book. I do talk about it a little bit in some of my vlogs in the past, so you could check them out. But Piranesi is in a really weird house that's essentially a labyrinth, which is where his name comes from in a sense. And it turns out that the house has more mystery than he thought. As Piranesi explores, evidence emerges of another person and a terrible truth begins to unravel, revealing a world beyond the one Piranesi has always known. This definitely took a turn that I wasn't expecting, only because again, I really thought that this book was going to be just something else. Especially plot wise, I thought it was going to be one of those no plot, just vibes kind of books. So when the plot was actually progressing, I was like, oh, okay, there's more to this. And it was a fun time. I actually do really recommend this book if you've been wanting to read it, especially because I feel like it's been buzzing around in the book community, I think. And a lot of people have this in their favorites list, and I could definitely see why. I'm glad I finally picked this up, and I could say that I liked it. The next book this is the second book that I read in May. As soon as I finished Piranesi, I picked this one up because I was in between grading and submitting my finals, and I just really wanted something. I really wanted something quick, but to distract myself from the essay that I was writing and then grading. And that is My Death by Lisa Tuttle. She's short, she's sweet and to the point. Still don't know what happened in this book, but in a really good way. It was really weird, really haunting, and at the same time, nothing happened, but again, like in a good way. I really don't know how to explain this because there is a plot, but at the same time, the plot didn't really move anywhere. So it's like really about just like the characters and what's going on. But at the same time, the plot did advance. I really don't know how to explain this because it was really weird, but I really liked it. So honestly, I'll just read the back of the book. The narrator of Lisa Tuttle's uncanny novel is a recent widow, a writer adrift. Not only has she lost her husband, but her muse seems to have deserted her altogether. Her agent summons her to Edinburgh to discuss her next book. What will she tell him? At once, the answers come to her. She will write the biography of Helen Ralston, best known, if at all, as the subject of W.E. Logan's much reproduced painting Circe, and the inspiration for his classic children's book Hermione in Cloudland. But Ralston was a novelist and artist in her own right, though her writing is no longer in print and her most radical painting, My Death, deemed too unsettling, malevolent even, to be shown in public. Over the weeks that follow, Ralston proves an astonishingly cooperative subject, even as her biographer uncovers eerie resonance between the older woman's history and her own. Whose life is she writing, really? That is a great question that I still don't think has been answered. I think I definitely want to revisit this book because maybe I read it too fast because of the weird in-between state that I was in between writing my essay and grading. But I enjoyed it nonetheless. And the last book that I will be talking about today was an anticipated read. I actually remember finding this on Amazon and like just putting it in my cart right away. However, I never bought it. It was sitting in my cart for the longest time until I saw Melissa here on YouTube talk about it, and as soon as she talked about this book, I bought it immediately, and then it took forever for me to actually read it. But once I did, this again became a favorite. It has a spot in my favorites shelf. So with that being said, the last book that I will be talking about in this video is Stoner by John Williams. And this is one of those books that literally just talks about the life of their character. It is a luminous and deeply moving novel, is a work of quiet perfection. William Stoner emerges from it not only as an archetypal American, but as an unlikely existential hero, standing like a figure in a painting by Edward Hopper in stark relief against an unforgiving world. This was definitely a very beautiful character analysis as we follow Stoner through his academic journey, through his academic career. Honestly, one of my friends talked about this book as their inspiration of starting their PhD program, and I completely see why. A lot of the highlights that I have in this book, I didn't have tabs with me, but this is very heavily annotated, really talk about the academic experience, and I resonated with this book so much. And also just other aspects of his life were very touching and very beautiful to kind of witness in a sense as he went through them in his life. And this was very moving, and I connected to this very deeply, honestly. And that is why it is on my favorite shelf. Honestly, I don't know if this is the best book I've ever read, but the fact that I just connected to it so well. Whenever I add a book to my favorite shelf, it really is on how I connect with it, and I just connected to this book very deeply. So if you've heard of it, if you've been wanting to read it, I highly recommend it. It is a beautiful, moving story of just a man who wants to live his best academic life. I guess that's the best way that I could put it. It's something rare than a great novel. It is a perfect novel, so well told and beautifully written, so deeply moving that it takes your breath away. And I will leave it at that. So those are all the books that I read in May. I hope your interest has been piqued in picking up some of these just by the way that I very chaotically talked about them. As you guys can see, I don't really summarize books. I just talk about the way that I felt while I was reading them. So I don't know if that helps at all. I just really wanted to yap about these books. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing. I am trying to reach my goal of having 500 subscribers by the end of summer. So if you're new here, please consider subscribing if you want to check out any more of my videos. I try to post a video once a week, and sometimes I post twice. No promises though. So I will hopefully see you in the next one. Bye. You caught me wrapped around your finger. Do you have to let it linger? Do you have to? Do you have to?
Do you have to let it linger?